Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, breaking down the latest Chelsea news on a regular basis. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe on this Saturday. In today's news video, just catching up on some things. Of course, we're now near the end of Euro 2020. Tomorrow will be the final, and of course from an England perspective is absolutely huge. But beyond that, I think hopefully with pre-season starting now, we've seen a couple of Chelsea players return to Cobham. We saw Thomas Tuchel at Cobham yesterday. Hopefully now things will start to get going on the transfer front, because it has been pretty silent for a few weeks. But there are some stories to catch up on. Of course, Erling Haaland, can it happen this summer? Would Lukaku still come into play as a major target for Chelsea? Olivier Giroud close to securing that exit to AC Milan. The battle for Camavinga between Chelsea and Man United this summer potentially. And finally, just about Kurt Zouma, the potential of him exiting the club this summer that I have been speaking about and sort of debating for a few months now. So we'll get into that in today's news video. Before we do, want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads this summer on the channel. All of the transfer news covered, but as well pre-season friendlies as we get closer to the start of Chelsea's 21-22 campaign. Also want to say a massive thank you to Lucid FC for sponsoring Let's Talk Chelsea in 2021. Bets and Chet D Hart, great guys, Chelsea fans as well, supporting a Chelsea content creator. They've got an interview out on the Fashion App Network currently, and as well as my viewers, you can use the permanent discount code CFC at checkout for £12 off or $15 off as well. On all orders, they've got the sale season going at the moment, so you can use that discount code on top of the sales at Lucid FC. Follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Lucid FC, and as well got a new line launching at the back end of the summer going into autumn, so please stay tuned for that. And as well got some cool collabs coming with Lucid FC. You know, I did my giveaway, the Son of Chelsea Lucid shirt. We're going to be doing a new one as the season launches, and of course it's going to be European Cup inspired. Please stay tuned for that as well. But thank you, Lucid, for supporting Let's Talk Chelsea in 2021. First thing I think to speak about is just about Haaland and the idea, can it happen this summer? Will it happen this summer? It's been so silent, but sometimes it's kind of a cliche. You'll see this from people who know about Chelsea transfers. When things are silent, that can sometimes be a very good thing for Chelsea, because Chelsea like to keep things behind closed doors when they're doing transfer business. And you know, for almost a year they were trying to get Kai Havertz signed, and we didn't know the progress that was going on there. And that's kind of the case with transfers in Chelsea. They do things very secretively, which I know annoys some people, but I think that's a better way of doing things. And I think I'd rather it be in advanced stages when we find out than it go on for months and months and months. With us kind of, will it happen, won't it happen? You've seen the Jadon Sancho transfer saga for Man United that's been very public and has been going on for years now. It's just a case of, can Chelsea secure this deal this summer? And I'm sure Marina and all of the finances, because it's such a huge deal. I think people need to understand how big a deal this would be for Chelsea. It would literally smash our transfer record. It may even smash our wage structure as well. You've got Raiola coming into it. If Chelsea sign this player, Erling Haaland, it's going to be the biggest deal in our history. So to expect that to happen overnight with a club that doesn't want to sell after selling one of their biggest young talents in Jadon Sancho, it was always going to be difficult. I think interesting from CFC news page, who were sort of in collab with Macasport and Cy Phillips, we're reporting here the Haaland is opening to joining Chelsea. We've known this especially from Matt Law. Borussia Dortmund's current position is that they won't sell Haaland this summer. He still remains Chelsea's #1 striker target, and Chelsea won't give up on it. But he has also been told that in the last few weeks Lukaku and Tuchel have held positive talks together. The feeling inside the club is that they see Lukaku as the more accessible and easier option. I've said for months that I think Lukaku is in some ways a more realistic option, but in a lot of ways as well I've bigged him up as a better option at times, because I think that he's just a ready-made forward. I think in the current moment as we sit here, despite the hype around Haaland, Lukaku for me is one of the top forwards in world football. I think he's top 3, top 2, potentially, depending on your sort of preference over a striker. I think he just is an elite forward, and we don't have any doubts about Lukaku in the Premier League. You can't have any doubts about Lukaku in the Premier League. I guess there would be a question mark over Haaland as a young player moving to here. And of course, you know, even though I think it would probably still be around 100 million for Lukaku, it wouldn't be 150, maybe going up to 200 million to sign him. So, you know, I think Lukaku is maybe an easier option, but the fact we've heard Haaland over and over again, and the fact Lukaku has kind of publicly stated before the Euros that he'd like to stay at Inter Milan, I think that's still maybe a less realistic one, and I'd still be looking towards Haaland as sort of the main option this summer. But we'll have to wait and see on this front. There is some striker movement at Chelsea, but unfortunately an outgoing Olivier Giroud. We've heard about this for months now. Olivier Giroud close to leaving Chelsea for Milan in 1.7 million deal. Fabrizio Romano here reporting for The Guardian. Giroud saw Chelsea trigger a 1-year option on his contract towards the end of last season, ending his chances of leaving on a free, but the striker is still expected to move to Milan. Just quickly on Olivier Giroud, amazing player for Chelsea. I think one of the best signings this club has made in the last 5 to 6 years, basically, in terms of value. He was never the big signing, he wasn't the big marquee signing, and I think we always knew he wasn't going to be a long-term signing, but when we actually think what he's done for the club, in 17-18 scored a couple of good goals under Antonio Conte, important goals in the Premier League too, and in 18-19 under Sarri he was the top goal scorer in the Europa League, scored against Arsenal in that triumphant final in Baku. I think his best work for Chelsea and most important work for Chelsea was done at the back end of 1920 under Frank Lampard, where his goals, along with him and Pulisic after Project Restart, took us to the top 4 basically, and I think that is always such a valuable thing for Chelsea. It was so important in 1920 with the transfer ban, we got into the top 4, and Giroud's goals were absolutely massive at the back end of that year. So I think he's been such a wonderful forward, and you can forget as well in 2021, despite not barely playing any games in the back end of last season, he scored some big goals for us in the Champions League run, the Atletico Madrid overhead kick. What a way to end your Chelsea career, because that was his final Chelsea goal. His first Chelsea goal was against Hull in Feb 2018. His final Chelsea goal was in Feb 21 against Atletico Madrid. So he's been such a brilliant servant for the club. But Olivier Giroud, I think he's been brilliant. I think you'll share my sort of thoughts in the comments below. Give me your favourite Olivier Giroud moments at Chelsea in the comments below. Just a couple of few quick stories here to pick up on. According to French journalist Julien Laurens, who was on Matisse's channel. Matisse, I link up with him pretty regularly. Go on his channel. He's been on my channel. Please go and check out his video. He's got some great guests on this summer in terms of transfer. He's had Julien Laurens, he's had Gabriel Marcotti, he's had Henry Winter, he's had Liam Toomey. I'm probably missing someone out there. He's had some amazing guests on his channel, so please go and check out his discussions on his channel. I'll leave a link in the description box below. But in his discussion with Julien Laurens, apparently Laurens said that Cech is a huge fan of Rennes midfielder Camavinga. We know Petr Cech's influence in a deal for another Rennes player last season, of course Edouard Mendy, which turned out to be Chelsea's best signing of last summer, absolutely. And Camavinga is a player that is gaining some interest this summer as a young prospect, and apparently Man United as well stepping up their pursuit of Rennes midfielder Camavinga. This from The Guardian last week as well, and Chelsea's potential interest in him, and the idea of getting a new midfielder in this summer. We've spoken about Declan Rice, we've spoken about Tchouaméni, and potentially Camavinga could be another one in sort of the list. Camavinga, though, for me, given his age, falls into the category of a player that is a good prospect. I think will probably go on to have a good career, could move to Man United, but is one player we don't need. We really don't. I think when he played against Chelsea, I think you saw, because back then, in the group stage, I think, there was a lot of hype around Camavinga. I mean, I think rightly so, given his performances for Rennes in Liga, but I think you saw the difference in level between, say, a young midfielder. I know he's younger than Mason Mount, but a young midfielder in Camavinga compared to Mason Mount. And Camavinga is not the type of midfielder Chelsea need. He's not sort of the profile. We're sort of stocked in an area that I just don't think Camavinga would really thrive at Chelsea. I don't think he's an essential signing, and I think that in terms of something I've constantly reiterated, we need someone like Declan Rice, we need a Tchouaméni. Camavinga is an exciting midfielder, but he's not an essential player for us, and I think he probably actually for his career should probably stay at Rennes for another season and develop even more, get more first team minutes. I think coming into Chelsea, where there's so much competition in that area, where he's not really the profile of player that I think we desperately need, is I think would be a mistake this summer. I'm kind of, with a lot of transfers this summer, I'm looking at the player and saying, does he upgrade what we currently have? Camavinga doesn't, unfortunately, and I think he could potentially be a good signing for Man United and they could get him this summer, but I don't think he's an essential one for Chelsea in my opinion, despite being an exciting prospect. Finally, this comes out of France as well. Kurt Zouma is expected to leave Chelsea this summer, claiming that there is interest in Kurt Zouma from Wolves, but has been declined. Everton too in the Premier League. Tottenham, of course, Kurt Zouma was was on loan at Everton in 18-19, so there has been constant interest in him over the years. But Roma and Jose Mourinho, who's now there, could be a destination for him. I bring this up because for months I've said, you know, with the centre-back situation, with potential recruits in that area, whether that be Varane, whether that be Koundé from Sevilla, that's, you know, more links to him this week to Chelsea. I've always said, you know, you're going to have to let someone go. Zouma has always been the most obvious one, simply because he hasn't been a main player for Thomas Tuchel. He's got some minutes for Tuchel, but he hasn't been a key player for us. And since Tuchel has arrived, and I think, you know, the three-back system doesn't really suit him. And I think given Kurt Zouma's age, him sticking around now, I think if he knows and he kind of it's clear to him that he isn't going to be a first team player again for Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel, and it's going to be really hard for him to break into the team, I think it's best for him to move on, because I think he probably backs himself. And by the evidence of the start of last season under Frank Lampard, him and Silva, you know, I think for the first half of last season, he was a brilliant centre-back. In terms of European football, I think, you know, his performance and all of the numbers around him were so impressive. And I think he'd back himself to go to potentially Roma, potentially to even as high as a PSG. I know they've just got Sergio Ramos, so that probably isn't going to happen, but I think he's that good a centre-back and really thrive. So I think the money would be there, and it'd be a decent fee, I think, for Kurt Zouma. I think Chelsea could get good money for him if you're trying to sort of bolster the finances to potentially recruit more players. I think Zouma is probably one of the best ones. Who could buy him this summer? Potentially Roma, potentially Everton if they want to go back in for him again. I think Zouma's one to look out for, I really do. As we get closer to the season, I think that could be a move that potentially could happen. If as well Chelsea really want a new centre-back, if Tuchel desperately wants a new centre-back, which has kind of been touted for months now. But let me know your opinions on Kurt Zouma. Do you think it may be a mistake to let him go? Do you think it's more likely him to leave this summer? Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.